Color wheel and value chart exercises. Exercise number 1, color wheel with primary and secondary colors. Exercise number 2, tints, tones, and shades using primary colors. Exercise number 3, tints, tones, and shades using secondary colors. Color wheel. A color wheel is a visual representation of colors which shows the relationships between primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. The primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. These colors cannot be mixed from other colors. The secondary colors are orange, violet, and green. These colors are created by mixing two primary colors, such as red mixed with yellow to create orange. Tertiary or intermediate colors are created by mixing a primary and a secondary color, such as blue mixed with green to create blue-green. In this example of a color wheel, we see the primary colors, secondary colors, and tertiary or intermediate colors. The primaries are yellow, blue, and red, and these are equally spaced apart on the color wheel. In between the primaries, we have the secondary colors, in this case green, which is made by mixing blue and yellow, orange, which is made by mixing yellow with red, and violet, which is made by mixing blue with red. In between the secondaries and the primaries, we have the tertiary colors. In this case, violet-red, which is made by mixing red with violet, blue-violet, which is made by mixing blue with violet, and so on. We have blue-green, yellow-green, orange-yellow, and red-orange. Complementary colors. Complementary colors sit opposite each other on the color wheel. For example, violet and yellow are complementary colors. When placed next to each other in a painting, complementary colors enhance each other. When mixed, they neutralize each other, resulting in less intense color. When mixed in equal amounts, you get a neutral brown color. Color temperature. Color temperature refers to our perception of a color as being either warm or cool. Reds, oranges, and yellows are typically considered to be warm colors, and blues, violets, and greens are considered to be cool colors. The color wheel is generally split into warm and cool colors. It is important to note that color temperature is relative and a matter of perception. Often we associate certain colors as being either warm or cool based on the surrounding colors. Determining color temperature is easier when you can compare one color to another. For example, let's take green, a secondary color. If we move to the right, towards the warm side of the color wheel, we have a yellow-green, which is considered a warm green. If we move in the opposite direction, towards the cooler side of the color wheel, we have a blue-green, which is considered a cool green. Now, it's important to know that these things are relative. Let's take yellow as an example. If we move to the left, towards the cool side of the color wheel, we have the same yellow-green. In this case, it's a cool yellow as opposed to a warm green. And if we move in the opposite direction, then it becomes obviously a warm yellow, orange yellow. The same is true for the most part with the rest of the colors in the color wheel. Undertones. Colors have undertones, which in some ways define their temperature. For example, the phthalo blue in our palette has a green undertone when compared to the ultramarine blue in our palette, which has a violet undertone. Therefore, phthalo blue is considered a warm blue, while ultramarine blue is considered a cool blue. Here in the color wheel, we can see the blue and the blue-green, or let's say blue with a green undertone, which is considered a warm blue, and the blue-violet, or blue with a violet undertone, which is considered a cool blue. This information is useful when determining color mixes. Undertones and mixing color. When mixing colors, it is important to consider undertones and complementary colors. For example, to mix a vibrant violet color, using a warm red, like cadmium red, or CR, and a warm blue, like phthalo blue, or PB, will not give the best result. This is because the undertone of a warm red is orange, which is a complement of blue, and the undertone of a warm blue is green, which is a complement of red. Remember that complementary colors neutralize each other when mixed. To get the most vibrant violet from your palette, mix a cool red, like quinacridone red or QR, with a cool blue, like ultramarine blue or UB, since they both have a violet undertone. In this example, you can see that the violet that results from the cool blue and the cool red looks more like violet than the one that results from the warm blue and the warm red. Since these contain complementary undertones, this is neutralized almost to the point where it looks like gray. This is not always a bad thing, as you can mix colors to suit your palette or your subject, and sometimes you might want a neutral violet color. Tints, tones, and shades. A tint is created by adding white to a color. A tone is created by adding gray to a color. A shade is created by adding black to a color. In this version of a color wheel, we can see examples of hues or pure colors and their tints, tones, and shades. On the outermost ring, we see the pure colors or hues. Next to them, we see their tints, in which we add white to the color. Working our way in, we see the tones, in which we add gray to the color. And finally, towards the center, we see the shades, in which we add black to the colors. Color schemes. A color scheme is used to describe the overall selection of colors in an artwork. The major color schemes in art are analogous, complementary, split complementary, triadic, and monochromatic. These color schemes utilize colors at certain locations on the color wheel. In this diagram, we see a series of color schemes, some of which we mentioned in the previous slide, and a couple of other ones as well. We'll begin with the complementary color scheme at the top left, which is pretty straightforward. Two colors opposite each other on the color wheel, in this case orange and blue. They can be any of the colors. Next to that, we have a rectangle color scheme, or more commonly known as a tetradic color scheme, which also deals with complements, but therefore complementary colors, red, green, and blue, orange, and they form a kind of rectangle when connected. Analogous color schemes are simply colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Split complement or split complementary is similar to the complementary color scheme, but differs in that the complement of yellow, violet, is not included. We use yellow and then split off from the violet to the left and to the right, so that we have yellow, red violet, and blue violet. Square color scheme is 4 colors equally spaced apart, and a triadic color scheme, 3 colors equally spaced apart on the color wheel. Color exercises and charts. In this class, we're using a limited palette of primary colors: burnt umber, titanium white, and ivory black. Each primary color comes in a warm and cool version. Our primary colors are cadmium red medium, which is warm, quinacridone red, which is cool, cadmium yellow medium, which is warm, cadmium lemon yellow, which is cool, phthalo blue, which is warm, and ultramarine blue, which is cool. Exercise number 1, color wheel with primary and secondary colors. Our first color exercise is to create a color wheel on canvas pad using the primary and secondary colors. The colors should be used straight from the tube. Arrange your color wheel according to the image on the right. To create your secondary colors, mix equal parts of the corresponding primary colors. Red and yellow to make orange, red and blue to make violet, and yellow and blue to make green. For this color wheel, we will mix our primary colors to get the most vibrant secondary colors. For the primary colors, use your warm colors. For orange, mix warm red and warm yellow. For green, mix warm blue with cool yellow. And for violet, mix cool blue with cool red. Exercise number 2, tints, tones, and shades using primary colors. Tints, tones, and shades, primary colors. In this exercise, our second exercise, we will create a chart as seen on the right. This exercise serves several purposes. To create tints, tones, and shades of the primary colors in your palette, to better understand color value and saturation, to better understand color temperature, to better understand color mixing, and to create a reference chart for use in the studio. To begin, create a grid that is 6 rows high by 4 columns wide. Organize your colors from top to bottom in the following order: cadmium red medium, quinacridone red, cadmium yellow medium, cadmium lemon yellow, phthalo blue, and ultramarine blue. Organize the columns as shown from left to right. Hue, or the pure color straight from the tube. Tint, mixing equal parts pure color and white. Tone, mixing equal parts pure color and gray. And shade, mixing equal parts pure color and ivory black. Keep in mind you will need to mix a middle gray to create your tones, which is made from mixing equal parts white and black. And here we see the finished chart that I began in the video demo. Primary colors in our palette with their tints, tones, and shades. I'd like to talk about something important, and that's saturation and how that differs from value. In this chart, we're working with tints, tones, and shades. We're changing the value of the color and making it lighter, a lighter value, and also making it darker, darker value. However, in terms of saturation, we're decreasing the saturation across the board. When we add white to a pure color, we lighten it, but we're decreasing its saturation, its intensity, its purity. When we add gray, we're darkening it, but we're still decreasing its saturation, intensity, and purity, no matter if we're adding gray or black. So value and saturation are two different things. A lighter color, where we add white to a pure color, we're decreasing its saturation. The same thing is true when we're adding gray or black to a pure color. We're decreasing the saturation, purity, and intensity. Exercise number 3, tints, tones, and shades using secondary colors. Tints, tones, and shades, secondary colors. Our third color exercise follows the same system as the primary color chart. It is slightly more involved as it requires you to mix the secondary colors before filling in the chart. This exercise is also valuable in determining color temperature, value, saturation, and mixes. Finally, this exercise results in a chart that can be used in the studio for reference. In the next slide, you will see the handout and guidelines. And here I provided a diagram that you can use for your reference chart, your tints, tones, and shades, secondary colors. It's a very similar system to the primary color chart, tints, tones, and shades, for which I did a demo. This one's a little more involved in that you have to mix your 3 secondary colors using your primary colors before you can create the chart. For example, to mix orange, we have 4 possibilities given the palette that we're using. We have cadmium red and cadmium yellow that makes up the first row. Those are warm colors. Cadmium red and lemon yellow, warm and cool. Quinacridone red and cadmium yellow, cool and warm. And finally, quinacridone red and lemon yellow, both cool colors. First column will always be the pure color, the hue. The second column, the tint, 50% white added to the pure color. Third column, the tone, 50% gray added to the pure color. And finally, the last column will be the shade, 50% black added to the pure color. You should mix enough of your oranges to complete the rows and enough of your middle gray to complete your columns.